and the winery's just
Okay.
G'day, Brett.
hello.
I'm not sure if you remember me for the 2 times I came to your cellar door back in 2016.
Okay, what's your name?
Brett Dooley.
Oh yeah, great, absolutely.
Well, the history behind it, Brett, is that the only reason I even know about you is through Grant. So Grant came back and all misty-eyed over having a tasting with you, and said you must make contact with Brett and see how it goes. So that was the origin of the story.
Okay, well, thanks, Grant. Thanks for sharing Eperosa. Much appreciated.
I was very impressed with your bunker-style cellar door when we came that time.
Yeah, no, it is pretty cool. Yeah, as you can probably hear the reverberation on my voice, but yeah, no, it's a great space. It's about 11 degrees in here at the moment, so yeah, perfect for wine maturation. Yep. And what kind of temperature in Singapore?
Hot.
Oh, mate,
Not ideal for wine maturation.
30 degrees today for the next 10,000 years, all right? What else do you want?
Yeah, it sounds pretty much Singapore. I hope, no doubt you've all got good wine fridges and the like, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if I had my time over again, and I was born 63 as I was,
yep.
Instead of becoming a lawyer, I would have become an air conditioning consultant for Singapore.
Sounds perfect. I'm sure it would have worked well. I'm sure there's people out there making plenty of money in that field.
Yeah, geez, it must have been a golden age.
Okay, we're on 7 o'clock, Brett. So what I might do is just introduce you, just so that our recording has the most effect on social media,
Sure.
and then ask you to start talking about the wines. I've asked everybody to line up the 3 whites side by side,
Yep.
just mainly because there's going to be a lot of interest in the 2 styles of the Semillon, and then the Grenache Blanc, which is so really an unusual wine to see in Australia, and there's been quite a lot of interest from people about that in particular. So you're a 6th-generation Barossa winemaker. Well, you're 6 generations from the Barossa. I'm not sure if it was 6 winemakers in succession in every generation, but certainly I think that that sort of connection to the land is so valuable in what you're doing. I read that you have 2 estates, the Magnolia and Grocke. Do you bring any fruit in at all, or is it all estate produced?
There's only the one block that we do buy in is the Stonegarden. So Stonegarden Grenache that you've got lined up. That's a vineyard I used to manage since 2011. Little story behind that vineyard is that there was a guy called Glenn on my mailing list, and Glenn liked the 2013 Stonegarden Grenache so much he ended up buying the vineyard. So as you do.
It's like that guy, the Remington guy. That's fantastic.
Correct. Exactly that. So yeah, Glenn sold a company called E2O, Engineering to Operations, and 450 employees in the resource sector, but knew nothing about vineyard management. So then for the last, since 2015, I've been helping Glenn out manage the Stonegarden vineyard. But so that's the only fruit that we get in. So the rest is from the Magnolia and Grocke vineyard.
So maybe the best place to kick off, because certainly with the first white that we see, that's all Magnolia, but and I understand that the 1941 is also all Magnolia, but after that you start the Grenache Blanc is drawn from both places. So maybe if you can sketch out for us, I guess the qualitative differences between Magnolia and Grocke as prime sites. That would be a really good way to kick things off.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the Grocke vineyard, those that have been here, Grant, etc. Yeah, I mean the likes of we've got Charlie Melton across the road, Rockford down the road. But this Krondorf vineyard we call our more masculine vineyard as far as wine styles. And if I sort of focused in on Shiraz as an example, the soils here, sandy loam over quite a heavy red clay over calcareous material. And typically the Shiraz that grows from here is just more powerful, has more shoulders, more tannin structure, more opulent, deeper fruits.
Elevation-wise, it's a bit lower than Magnolia as well, isn't it?
It is, yes.
By
So
about 100 meters, I think.
yeah, so we're about 280 meters, 280 to 285 above sea level at the Krondorf vineyard. And then literally about 4 or 5 minutes drive away as you head, I guess, sort of east-northeast, there's a local hill called Mengler's Hill, and that's where the Weinbau Magnolia Vineyard is. So it sits on a road called Magnolia Road. It tops out at 335 meters above sea level. And the key feature of that block is the deep alluvial granitic sands that it sits on. So it's a long, thin block that goes up into a gully, and actually 3 gullies and 3 winter streams meet on the one property. So it really is quite beautiful. And that's where these ancient vines, really from 1896 planted Shiraz through to our more recent planting 217, but really the Goldilocks nature of that site is the vines can power down through those deep sands in the base of a gully and find subsoil moisture movement all through summer. So
you're getting off that site, it's speaking more about minerality and more linear acids, I'd imagine, than Krondorf by comparison.
Correct, absolutely that. Certainly the aromatics, I think, are a little bit finer, a little bit higher, and particularly with the Semillon, there's really, in whatever year, there's this little saline kind of oyster shell drive. So even though I'm making wines with a little bit of oxidative handling and full barrel age and lees aging, there's, again, this inherent trait, I guess, of those deep sands and that saline kind of sea spray oyster shell line. That is
your notes on jar number 1, the NV Semillon leans quite heavily into that oyster shell component, and I'm absolutely fascinated by the notion of taking Semillon. Firstly, taking Semillon from the Barossa, where you write that you believe it should sit up with Shiraz, Grenache, and Mataro as the best varietals to come from the Barossa. I'm racking my brains to think if I've ever tasted another Semillon out of Barossa. I actually don't think I ever have, and I like to think I've drunk a little bit a little bit of Barossa wine in my sure. 21 long years. But so that's super interesting for me. And then the idea, of course, of this multiple blending to extract the characteristics of the 3 vintages. So I understand that the one we're tasting tonight is 50% 2019, and the balance split between 18 and 17 in equal volumes.
That's correct. Yep, exactly that.
Maybe you could sketch for us what the rationale for that was and what each of those vintages are bringing to the final product.
Yeah, to give a little bit of context about the wine, I bought the vineyard in 2013. So hadn't made a white wine prior to that. And Semillon at the time, not a high value crop really, but rather than rip out 1941 planted vines, I certainly gave it a go. What I found over time, and again, I just love the way Semillon ages. So initially, I guess I would, bottle components from each vintage, but then I'd have a few barrels that I'd, just kind of have, in some ways, when I say left over, they were still amazing barrels. But what I began to love is what I was seeing with those aged barrels, and just the complexity, the depth, the layering. And so this non-vintage sort of quest on this wine is, just a project that I've been wanting to do for a number of years. And that
I think it's amazing, because if I think back to what Keith Mugford's doing in WA and what the guys in the Hunter are doing, certainly whenever I've been lucky enough to sit down and taste different vintages at the same time, the personalities are extraordinarily different. They go off in completely different directions. It's fascinating to see their maturation cycles, but not only that, their innate characteristics seem to be different, vintage on vintage, to a very marked degree.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's you know, and again the beauty of blending, like you know, again, rather than whether it's a varietal blending or a non-vintage blending, is sort of sometimes you think, well, why do we get so stuck onto, you know, single vintages when you know you've got this beautiful tool to layer up wines? So yeah.
Really cool. So the 17 would be would have been a wetter of the three vintages, is that right? Or
That's correct.
Cooler of the three. Okay, so that's going to impart more phenolics than the other two. Would that be correct? What's its contribution to them?
Yeah, what I found, certainly being the wetter vintage, and because this vineyard does sit up into a gully, it sort of, you know, it will yield accordingly. But the surprising thing is when you know, in a vintage like 17, when you got vine health and again, these vines are dry grown. So what I found was just the freshness and I don't know, the beauty of the flavor it was like, I guess it was just pretty, it's elegant. It's where, I guess, in a dry climate like we are, some of those wetter vintages are the prettiest vintages.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the most powerful, but the 17 is probably one of my favorite vintages for that Magnolia Blanc.
Yeah, super interesting. So if we now compare your 2019 jar number 2, the 1941 vines, tiny production, geez, 600 bottles. So really, really small production. We're very fortunate to have any at all from you, Brett. I'd imagine the whole of Australia with your Winemaker of the Year award must be clamoring for your attention at this point. So thank you for letting us have some of that. Maybe you could just work us through that 19 and what you think we should be finding in the glass now and where you think it's headed.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, classically, you know, Semillon brings those lemon-based tones. So I guess to compare the 41 over the non-vintage, I find there's certainly, you know, that little lemon rind, maybe moving into a little bit of grapefruit. There is the artifact of barrel aging. That's 16 months in barrel. So
right.
You do have, that lees component. There's also, it is from a clone of Semillon called the Madeira clone. So that Madeira clone is known to be a more powerful clone and also have a little waxy edge on the back palate. So
I guess that waxy sort of silkiness will evolve and become more amplified over time if one hangs on to that bottle.
I would think so. Yeah, the earliest I've got is 214. So what I've been really blown away with Semillon in general, both the 14 and 15, the first two vintages, they are looking as fresh, if not fresher. What I'm finding with my wines, because I'm keeping them very reduced in barrel, so they're on lees, they're not racked. So when they're sort of presented now, there's almost a bit of puppy fat on them. So they kind of, you know, a little bit of dissolved CO2, there's a little bit of doughiness. But what I'm finding is after years or a few years, they're actually leaning out and I feel them like almost pulling back in to a tighter place, which is really quite exciting to see.
It's very cool because I actually see that in Riesling, particularly out of New Zealand. It goes through that wax and wane kind of characteristic change over time. And it's quite astonishing. You'll taste it and think, geez, you know, I had this a year ago and it was a completely different construct. It's fascinating how those varietals do that. I just noticed talking to you here, everything's in cork. Nothing's under Spellman, including the Sem. I was reading just today, you see if I got the statistics right. James Halliday said that 89% of every white that he rated for 22 is under Stelvin, and a little bit under, I think 68% or 60 something, late 60s in red, which is an extraordinary number. It just, I had no idea that for the vast bulk of Australian wine now, it had moved to that extent. I didn't realize that.
I must say, you're educating me with those figures. So
yeah, actually, mate, I read it a second time. I thought, there's always this notion that Stelvin is for a certain price bracket or qualitative level, and that cork will always be part of the premium juncture. And when I read this, I thought, my God, it really, really has changed the face of premium wine permanently. I'm sure there's no going back from that.
Yeah, no. I mean, and again, cork for our wine style, cork as a closure just suits what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I keep seeing it with older vintages that we have. Also, lucky enough I've had a few blind tastings where same wine, bottled cork and Stelvin, 18 years in bottle, and just the generosity and the freedom that the cork gave. This was a red wine. This was a Shiraz from another producer. But again, in a blind tasting, unequivocally, I really just loved the corked bottle. It just had more generosity. It was. The Stelvin wasn't necessarily brighter. It was just kind of a bit found it harder, just harder on the palate, not necessarily.
Interesting. We had a similar debate with McWilliams just the other day with the Elizabeth and the Lovedale, and if I remember correctly, they're now both Stelvin only. I don't think you can even get Lovedale in cork anymore, which is as an industry benchmark is an interesting position.
Yeah, that's right. They decided the last vintage of cork, the Lovedale was the 13, I think, Rob.
Yeah, that's it.
At Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant, yeah. So let's have a look now. Sorry, I get a bit of... Yeah, great, sorry.
Sorry, Brett, how long for the Semillon are they in the barrel, and the nature of the barrels you're using?
Yeah, so the 1941, that's 16 months in barrel. The barrels that I'm using are fourth fill. These are barrels that I'm actually getting direct from Orlando. They have been filled permanently by Orlando from their inception. So they start off as a new barrel into there, and then I pick them up still wet, so just a little bit of sulfur. The beauty of getting them from Orlando, they have a meticulous regime for sulfur and cleanliness, as you do in such a big winery. So these barrels come in very pure and smell wonderful, but I'm not after that sort of intense new oak kind of.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So it's very fortunate that I can source something like that, a barrel that's so clean and so fresh, which I think really does help the wine for sure.
It's so clean, actually, so crispy. You'd nearly think it wasn't on oak. I don't know if that's just my palate, but it feels very linear, very clean on the palate.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I think all of the sems that I've Magnolia sems that I've done. There's nothing that really screams of oak. There's none of that kind of real oak artifact, and I like that fact. You've got the beauty of barrel fermentation, you've got the beauty of full lees aging, so you've got all those beautiful Burgundian artifacts, I guess, but just without the full throttle. Yeah.
So wine number 3, the Grenache Blanc.
Yes.
Dying to talk with you a little bit about this. So mostly Grenache Blanc from Krondorf, and in the balance, Grenache Gris and some Magnolia Sam. Again, very tiny amounts of it. Is it what? So it's definitely unfined and unfiltered, much to the deep concern of our cellar staff as they were decanting today. I've got frantic calls. Robert, there's something wrong. So I phoned Lou and he said, no, everything, it should be fine. Luke, if you could hold that up to the light, I'd be fascinated to see the color. Looks almost golden, right?
See, yeah, it's gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, certainly it's, I mean, I guess, or even the Semillons, they do have a golden tinge. So part of the winemaking style with the Grenache Blanc and the Semillons is actually oxidative handling through as juice. So from the press, what that does give is just amazing resilience down the track. So anything that can be oxidized, any compounds that can be oxidized are oxidized early as juice in tank from press or between press and tank, etc. Then once it goes into barrel for fermentation, the wines can clean themselves up. But what I do love is just then the absolute resilience. I mean, these Semillons are really designed for, you know, that they should be able to travel, you know, decades really.
I've drunk a fair bit of Grenache Blanc out of the old world, and I find many of them. And so I'm interested to see what Lou and Grant and everybody thinks about this one. A lot of them can be quite bulky and muscular, and really don't have the aromatic finesse that one sort of really wants out of the wine. And obviously, you've nailed it, judging by what the wine critics are saying about this Grenache Blanc. Terroir, is that what's doing it? And of course, fantastic winemaking ability.
Yeah, just to actually go back to a place, the Grenache Blanc is actually the 88% of the Grenache Blanc is from, it is actually planted at the Magnolia Vineyard.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I got the information wrong there. I thought that was correct.
So there's a little bit of Grenache green at the Grocke Vineyard. So we have a Grenache Noir block here on the Grocke Vineyard, and there's just happened to be some Grenache green scattered through that block. So, but the Grenache Blanc, I mean, to put it into the little story behind it, you know, for Australia, Grenache Blanc only was introduced in 2016. So Yalumba Nursery teamed up with Yangara in McLaren, and the first material, was
so it wasn't actually existing in the Australian scene before then, just as field blends and what have you. It's literally that recent.
It is literally that recent, yeah. So I fell in love with Grenache Blanc years and years ago. Just I'd be at somebody's house, a blind tasting, and just going, wow, what is this? I love it. And then finding out Grenache Blanc, and that happened 3 or 4 times in about as many years, and then started buying Grenache from southern France, or Grenache Blanc, I should say. And that's sort of started my journey. So I said to a guy called Nick, who he was the manager at Yalumba Nursery here in Barossa, if you ever get Grenache Blanc in, I would love to have some. And so, that's
fantastic. The one thing I would say about the Spanish and the French Grenache Blanc is it almost mirrors the cellaring projections of the Rouge. It has this kind of amazing potential for super long cellaring. Do you think that the Australian and your style will echo that?
Well, I certainly hope so. Obviously, being the first wine out of these, it's hard to make big calls, but I know the winemaking style that I'm applying, and again, this sort of, sort of more oxidative juice handling and even farming organically, all of those things, everything in that wine is of itself. So I would hope that the variety would come through. I can't see why it wouldn't.
It's really exciting.
It frankly does. You know, Rob hasn't got the benefit of being able to try the wines tonight, given that he's in Spain. But Rob, just look at the first 2 Semillons. Really, it's all about lemon, and lemon. I mean, it really is. There's just different layers of lemon zest, lemon peel, lemon flower, and then finally, lemon spritz almost. But they're very impressive in the way that they quite linear. Whereas when you go over to the Grenache Blanc, It's almost like it gives you a head fake. On the attack, you get a slight flourish of citrus. And you think, oh, hello, here comes lemon sherbet number 3. But then it takes a different curve. It goes off and it goes into stone fruits, completely into stone fruits, apricots, white flowers, that type of thing. So it takes you on a different journey. It almost does a right-hand turn from the very first moment that it hits your palate to where it finishes. I find it really intriguing. It's not like any old world Grenache I've had, that's for sure. It's different.
I certainly agree. Those sort of stone fruit kind of natures and the white blossom. I mean, that's certainly what I've always talked about here at Cellador as white flowers, white blossom. Maybe a few people, like, we sort of move sometimes into little pear, apple, but certainly almost that white stone fruit kind of nature.
Yeah, it's more peach and pear,
Yeah, no, and I think that's what I've always found attractive is just those high-end little florals, those beautiful florals, but then again that lovely stone fruit kind of nature. It's just it's unique. It's a really unique variety. There's no doubt.
It really is. It's going to be interesting to see how it will age. I mean, I'm not the best of judges of these things, but certainly the body's there.
And the acids, presumably.
The acids are there, but the aromatics will probably suffer over time, I guess. But I guess that's the whole beauty of seeing where it goes. When did you start first making it, Brett?
The Grenache, that's the very first rendition.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. So the Grenache Blanc is non-vintage because it is 50% of the first crop in 2019, and 50% of the second crop in 2020.
For those dummies amongst us, the clue's in the title. Project Wine Number 1. Okay.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm just a bit slow. But no, it's
well done, Lou.
Thank you. Gold star. Well done. Yeah.
Well done. Yeah.
So let's have a look now at the Shiraz and the Mataro side by side.
Actually, before you move on for a second, Rob, am I reading these volumes right, Brett? I mean, 641 bottles of the Semillon each, and 700 bottles of the Grenache.
That's correct. Yeah, that's production. Correct. It is the.
How do you make money?
That's good question. I guess, I mean, one of the key things for us is we're pretty much a direct mail order business, so we don't have any distributors. So I guess, we offer, like here at Cellador, our pricing is very respectable, very reasonable, but I guess we don't have a lot of that layering that goes, which I guess helps with the tiny volumes.
It also clearly explains why you're so thin.
The other thing is, I pretty much do everything from Zoom calls to tractor driving to winemaking to glass washer. So
there's no way you're going to get a fat bastard like me working for you, that's for sure. No way. No way.
Sorry, Rob. So
that's all right.
I must say, I do spend a lot of my time doing the Eperosa project.
And the pictures on your site show a white labby looking really exhausted. So clearly that's your Labrador is in charge of public relations. There's a fantastic picture of the dog just absolutely knackered in front of the cellar. Obviously, it must have been through harvest or something. It's a great picture.
Oh yes, I just recalled what picture you're talking about. Yeah, okay. No, that was exactly that. That's a dog that's worn out through a whole day of picking plus winemaking and the rest.
Yeah, no one's going to get barked at that night. That's for sure.
No.
All right, let's look at the Shiraz and the Mataro. We're sort of back into the sort of the known territory of what makes Barossa so very famous. I'm struck by John before the Shiraz with 34% of it coming from 1896 vines. Now, there's many producers in South Australia who claim to be making wine off ancient vines, but very, very few of them with that percentage of vines that old. So it really is a wine of great historical import to be putting that much historical capital into a bottling. It really is fascinating.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
all I was saying was that it's very rare to see that percentage of historical vines dedicated to a bottling, especially at this price point. There's many winemakers who lay claim to bottling off ancient vines, but the actual percentages they're using are very small. Whereas a third of this bottle is from the 19th century vines themselves, which is extraordinary history.
No, absolutely, and it is exceptional value for money. There's nothing short of that. I guess it was in any given year, I can declassify fairly heavily. If I'm always, I guess, part of. Perhaps I need to think a bit more about monetary terms sometimes.
Yeah, from me.
I do have. I guess whether it's just a constant quest to just do better. And so even in the vintages that follow on from the 19s that we have, I'm just really excited about what we've got coming through. I'm so excited about these wines as well. But each year that we run these vineyards organically, each year, no doubt, I learn a little bit more. Just the layering and really that the Magnolia will always be just great value for money. So I guess we've got the bulk of the 72% of Magnolia is Shiraz. We'll have the Magnolia 1896 next year. We'll have the 1965, the individual plant. We'll have individual bottlings of those. But still that Magnolia, the straight Magnolia, will get anything that's slightly deselected. It'll still have a lot of
that content. And then it's interesting reading your descriptors because it doesn't track what many people would define as phenolic and palate descriptors. You speak a lot of cherry cola and boysenberry, a sense of creaminess and minerality. Those are not things that automatically I lean into when I think of Barossa Shiraz. It makes it really exciting. Is that again mesoclimate that's showing those qualitative differences?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's again going back to this kind of idea of vineyards and I guess femininity and masculinity. So the Krondorf block here, where the winery is, where I'm here right now, it is those powerful clays, like I mentioned before. The soils are masculine, the wines are masculine, but then again those deep alluvial sands. So at the Magnolia Vineyard, imagine two winter streams coming out of the hills. In between two of those winter streams is this inverted bowl of deep alluvial sand.
Amazing.
So it is just, I don't even know how deep it is. It's just meters and meters and meters and meters. It's probably 15, 20 plus meters. And that is the beauty of this site. It's those sandy, rocky soils, low clay content, give you beautiful high-end aromatics, fine tannins, and just elegance. And obviously, with the other key thing about the Magnolia block is at the top of those three gullies that meet on the one property, it is the Eden Valley. So all that cold air drains down from the upper Eden Valley down through this vineyard. So we get very strong gully winds. The locals call it the Vine Vale Doctor, Vine Vale being a little local area name. And it's a quite a consistent gully wind.
Then by contrast, the Mataro is only 2/3 your that's jar number 5, and a third of it comes from Stonegarden. Is that right?
So the Mataro, the Mataro in the Grenache Mataro is actually from here at Krondorf. Oh,
okay. So it's all entirely Krondorf, the Grenache Mataro. There's no Stonegarden.
No. So, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Of the Grenache. So of the Grenache, about 36% is off of Stonegarden.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. About 20, low 20s are off 1903 planted vines here at Krondorf. And so really the feature of the Grenache Mataro is that the 3 blocks that make up the 80%, they have an average age of 117 years of age. So you've got Magnolia 1950 planted Grenache, you've got Krondorf 1903, and then you've got Stonegarden 1858, so 163-year-old vines.
Yeah, really extraordinary. What's your opinion on these vines as they get older? It seems the people like the Henschke's are actively finding alternatives to Hill of Grace with the vineyard behind, etc. What's your feeling on yields? Is it just going to be an ever decreasing game in terms of these super old vines, in terms of production?
The way I like to think about grapevines is a bit like they're like an elastic plant. So you can take an old vine vineyard and you can give it health. You can, especially running things organically, you can increase soil health. You can actually rebuild an old vine as such.
You mean its vigor and its ability to yield fruit? You can actually rejuvenate.
Yeah, you can again, this elasticity that I sort of talk about with grapevines. You can take a vine of say X capacity, say an old vine that has an X capacity of say 6, and really, you can give it very good nutrition, improve the soil health, prune it properly, cut back any disease, and you can actually lift that.
Okay, that's interesting.
So quick question, Brent. When you found these vines, when you actually got control of them, what state were they in, and that process, that journey you went through in getting to where they are now? The reason I asked the question is I remember when we came to your cellar door, that was obviously earlier on, and I know how much effort you put into it, given you're largely a one-man show. So it's an amazing story.
Oh, sorry, I just lost the last bit there, Grant.
Sorry, I was saying when obviously these are very old vines. What state were they in when you actually found them, and the process by which you have been able to take them on this journey to where they are now? And I mean, it's given you largely a one-man show. I mean, it's a pretty amazing story.
Well, certainly, I mean, to take the Magnolia Vineyard as an example, when I bought that in 2013, which was quite a dry year, so literally I had shoot length that may have been like a foot on average in some of those blocks. So there was a lot of wood put down, there was a lot of permanent cordon. So over those years, for example, the 1965 Shiraz block, basically cut them all back to the crown. Spend a lot of time reading each vine. So reading where the growth is, where the seams of strength. So in an old vine, you might have a trunk that 3/4 of that trunk is dead, but there's a live seam that is kind of peeling up one side. So it's identifying where that is, where the strongest growth is, and reshaping it using chainsaws or etc. And really, finding where that strength is, and cutting out old wood, cutting out Utipa. Utipa produces toxins which can certainly inhibit vine growth and health. So reconstructing, but then changing nutrition. So I took that vineyard from being a commercially run vineyard to applying manures, composts, took away all herbicides, and that's again one of the key things in just for our own future health, soil health. Soil health is really our society's. It's our fix for. I know this is getting very off tangent. Soil health is our fix for carbon sequestration, carbon basically reducing carbon, or basically locking carbon up that we need for our global warming. It's also it's our health. It's producing, allowing plants to have a symbiotic relationship with soil, having foodstuffs that have secondary metabolites that can help us, avoid chronic disease.
It's important. It's important.
Oh, too right. It's so important. I just can't believe there's not more of a conversation about human health, even in like a pandemic like this. There's very little talk about actual like quality of food, quality of the agricultural space, and farming and what it has as a society as a whole.
Well, the bottom line, that to extrapolate that to be completely Machiavellian, is one should just drink more good wine. It sounds like the recipe for the panacea for all ills.
That's correct. Perfect. So
let's have a look at number 6 now, if we can. I'm really fascinated by the history attached to the Stonegarden Vineyard, and really delighted that we're tasting this with you, because we have a working plan to taste Grenache from Mark at Turkey Flat and Jason at Messina, who draw fruits from the same site. And I'd love to invite you to join that with us, where we can actually taste the same wine, but from 3 different winemakers in exactly the same monopole, as it were. It would be a really fantastic experience. So I'll chase you down, and Mark and Jace at some point, put that tasting together. It'd be really a fun thing to do. But let's drill down now into what we've got here. 1858 vines. It's 100% 1858? Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Right.
So there's 8.5 hectares of the original what was a bush vine planting. The Stonegarden Vineyard total planting in its heyday, back in the sort of 1880s, 90s, was 40 hectares. It is now a 20-hectare vineyard, of which 8.5 are Grenache.
And it's 6 people draw fruit off that vineyard, is that right? 6 wineries.
So including, if you were to include the Riesling, the Muscat blocks, etc., there's probably now a total of 12 or 14 labels.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that take off that block. So pretty much, I could certainly list a whole number of them if you'd like, but from John Gavin to Rockford to
What's fascinating about that is the Remington guy clearly knew a good thing when he saw it.
He did.
Buying this vineyard that it seems like the whole of South Australia wants to get in on. It's fantastic. And so, do I have it right that you do the viticultural management of the whole vineyard?
I used to help Glenn up until about 6 months ago. So when I took over that vineyard in 2011, I had to literally go around to wineries to sell the fruit. I was going, do you want some Grenache for $14 a ton from this really old vineyard? There's numerous wineries that have knocked me back, and they still talk about it today. I can't believe we knocked back that Stonegarden 58 Grenache. So, but that just shows you, in 10 years, exactly where it was. That was a forgotten vineyard that had no home for the fruit, and so that was a beginning of a project, and then as soon as people started making wine from it, then it really gained the kudos that it has been getting. And to Glenn's credit, he let everyone use the Stonegarden name to build his brand.
It's very smart.
Now Glenn has Stonegarden brand wine. So
he's actually doing his own label as well. Oh, that's it.
He is. Yep. He's now got his own label. So which all the best to him, because it kind of the vineyard.
It has to cost money in the early days to get it right.
Oh yeah, look, and even now you could drop $1 million on that property and you wouldn't even know where it went. So he needs to try and maximise his income or return off the block. So it's a good thing.
Well, I'm just thinking about what the costs of, and we won't mention the other producers that are taking off Stonegarden, but again at $79, this is extraordinarily good value. There's some triple-digit wineries that are taking fruit off this particular site.
Yep.
Amazingly good value.
Yeah, no, I guess, yeah, always looking to keep things accessible. And also, I'm looking to build a wine business. And I feel, yeah, just to price things, yeah, that are modest, when I say modestly, just things that I can make money from, grow, and also build a following. So.
Well, Brett, it's been fantastic talking to you. I'm sorry if I've kept you later than normal. I'm mindful that it's getting late in Oz, and I hope I didn't bag on too much.
No. This is the first Zoom style. Like I haven't even been. I mean, for a world that's basically on Zoom non-stop now. Yeah. This is my first go at it. So there you go.
Well, it's excellent.
Well done, Brett.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Grant. Cheers, mate.
It looks like Paul's got a question.
Awesome booze. No questions. I'm just very grateful for you taking the time and sharing the story, the history, the journey, and it's awesome to see, as you said, someone who's so passionate about what you do, and once again the outcome that you have. So we're blessed to be in Singapore, as much as we would probably love to be down where you are. Mine is a bit too cold. To really have this opportunity. So thank you for your time, because obviously you've educated us, and it's an amazing wine. Congratulations on what you've been able to achieve.
Oh, thanks so much. My pleasure, and thanks for partaking, in our produce.
I see that two of the listings have sold out while we were doing the tasting tonight. I'll talk to Lou briefly about the chance of going forward on more stock. I'm not sure where you guys are with that, but I'll publish the recording in about half an hour, and I'll send a note to everybody who was on the call tonight, and by then I'll have an idea of some forward.
The reality is, because Brett's not, because of the nature of Brett's production, everything we bring up is under the 100-litre rule.
Oh, okay. So it'll always be smalls.
At the very, very best, the most I'll ever bring up is 11 dozen. So, it's restricted, and we're not going to get a lot of looks at it, because logistically it's going to be a bit of a mare. But hopefully, the database will get onto it and see the quality that's shining through here, and just snap it up as and when it's available.
Well, thanks again, Brett. It's been great, and I look forward to that Stonegarden project. We'll definitely put that together with the boys, and we'll all sit down and taste. It'll be great fun.
No, don't you cut me off yet. He's such a rude. He's a South African, so he's rude. All right, you can't help it.
We're taught at birth to take advantage.
Clearly. So Brett, the question I ask every winemaker is, when you've got time on your own and no one's looking, so you don't have to worry about publicity, what wine do you enjoy drinking?
Well, I must say I do love champagne. So the name Eperosa actually comes from Epernay and Rosa Barossa. So desert island wine, it would be oysters and champagne are one of my go-tos.
And you live in the Barossa. Good job. Yeah.
Yes.
Makes the sparkling wine as well.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if the Hotel Tanunda had some decent oysters on the menu a long time ago. So I guess if you can get a nice champagne to go with it up there at the Chateau Tanunda Hotel, very nice.
I do have Coffin Bay not too far up the road.
Coffin Bay oysters here.
Yeah, exactly. You're blessed with some of the best oysters in the world just up the road. So. We'll get them semi-frozen, imported on a plane. So enjoy the good project.
What's that phrase? I love it that when Gordon Ramsay always has a go at the guys on television. Fresh frozen is
That's right.
the sales technique.
No, you missed the first adjective. It's not, if it's from Gordon Ramsay, it's fucking fresh frozen.
Yeah.
That is so true. He doesn't mind an F word or two.
Definitely, he has a go. Well, thanks everybody. It's great. Next Thursday we're doing Arnaldo Caprai from Italy, and you're welcome to join us. It's on the site. And Brett, thanks again. It's really been a fantastic interaction with you tonight. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
much appreciated. And
And thanks to Grant for actually putting this whole project together with us, with you.
Oh, I've already given him a free meal. That's enough.
Oh, that's enough. Yeah.
yes,
I just love.
Thanks so much, Grant. Much appreciated.
Grant. Love your story, mate. I love it. It's fantastic.
Thanks,
Okay,
guys.
take it easy.
Appreciate it.
Good night, everybody. See you.
Good night.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.